Okay, I'm going to call this meeting of the Sequim City Council to order. First is Pledge of Allegiance. And if the city clerk could please take roll call.
Councilor Downer.
Here.
Councilor Butler. Councilor Lowe.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Anderson.
Here.
Mayor Janice.
Present.
Councilor Rudder.
Here.
Councilor Hartman.
Here.
Is there a motion to excuse Councilor Butler?
So moved.
Second that.
Any objections? Seeing none, he is excused. All right, number 4, approval of the final agenda. Is there any changes to the final agenda? All right, seeing none, the agenda is approved. All right, item 5 will be the statement of coexistence of government-to-government relationships. This will be read once a quarter, and tonight will be the first reading of it. And the statement of coexistence and government-to-government relationship. The city that we know as Sequim was once inhabited solely by First Peoples known as the New Sklayam. Is that correctly? Well, people represented by the 3 tribal governments, Jamestown, New Sklayam, Port Campbell's Clallam, and Lower Elwha Clallam. Of these 3 sister tribes, the Jamestown Clallam tribe takes the lead in leadership relationships with the city of Sequim, while including the 2 sister tribes as determined by the tribes. We, the City Council of Sequim, and our partner, the Jamestown Clallam tribe, value coexisting respectfully and responsibly together for the purposes of stewarding the people, lands, and the institutions that serve us. Our governments do not work alone in isolation, but care for each other's communities. With enlightened awareness of our local history of this area, we commit to the continued partnership and collaboration as 2 sovereigns. This statement of coexistence and government-to-government relationship is a respect to the Sklallam people and their history. All right, item 6, public comment. City Clerk.
The public comment sheet will be collected for those attending in person, located over here on the table. Comments will be taken every other one from those attending virtually, by phone, and in person. For individuals attending in person, please take a moment to silence your cell phones. For those attending virtually or by phone, if you'd like to provide public comment, please now press the raise your hand icon, or if you're on the phone, press *9. Each person will have 3 minutes to speak on any topic, and there will be a timer visible on the screen. A total of 30 minutes will be permitted to provide comment. Please state your name and if you're representing an organization. Again, for those of you virtual or on the phone, please now press the raise your hand icon or *9. Anthony, do we have anyone to start who is virtual?
Yes, actually, we have a phone-in caller. Caller, with your last 3 digits of your phone number are 265. Please unmute your microphone by pressing *9, and you may now address the council. Oh, the hand just went back down.
It looks like the hand is still up. Do you wish to speak?
Came back up now. Now you're successful. Go ahead and you may address council.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Judy Larson. I live at 1070 West Palo Verde Loop in Sequim, Washington. And my public comment is to bring to your attention concerns that you may actually have recently read about in the Sequim Gazette and the Peninsula Daily News concerning the proposed piping of the very first Sequim Valley Dungeness ditch. the fact that we are concerned about serious impacts that this would have on its function as a wildlife corridor, including that which was identified and included as a requirement by the city for protection to allow for the development of Jenny's Meadows. The ditch has so much importance as an open ditch for sustaining tree canopies as well as the wildlife corridor and for recharging of our shallow aquifer. Shareholders who have rights with the Sequim Prairie Tri-Irrigation Association, who is the source of this proposal, with the help of Clallam Conservation District for helping to write up the application for money to do this, were only given details in January of 2023, although the project was actually applied for in December of 2021. In a prior communication with Gary Smith with the Sequim Prairie Tri-Irrigation Association, I was told that this was being done because the city of Sequim wanted this done. I hope there will be some discussion within the city council and perhaps some of your people, the new public works director, and congratulations that we have him now, that whether this really is something that you feel is required for whatever purposes you initially apparently told Gary Smith you wanted it done. Thank you very much. I will try to get more information to your attention in writing, and I very much appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. Next up, in person for public comment, we have Debbie.
Thank you. My name is Debbie Soderstrom. I live at 53 Stampede Drive in Happy Valley. I'm here really on behalf of myself as a citizen, but I'm kind of interconnected with Sequim City Band, so it's hard to separate out that phase of my life. So there were a couple of things that you'll be discussing tonight with regard to the charges, the lease agreements for users of the new rehearsal hall space that was added on to the James Center and completed last year. And one of the concerns I have is on the rental form, or at least on the rate chart.
Are we doing the public hearing for this? Is there going to be public comment for that?
Not Swisher Falls tonight.
Okay. Okay. So if you want to save your comments for the public hearing part of that, if it's concerning that.
Oh, okay. And when it
here shortly. Yeah. Next
oh,
time.
so I wait for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right, that's the end of the general public comments I have in the room. Anthony, is there anyone online wishing to provide a public comment at this time?
Where is it? There it is. No, nobody else is on there. Pardon me.
That concludes public comment.
Okay, moving on to a couple public hearings. So number 7A, this will be Sequim Municipal Code 3.68 rental fees for Swisher Hall. Again, the subject of this public hearing is the proposed code amendment for the Sequim Municipal Code 3.68 for Swisher Hall rental fees. I'm going to go ahead and open this public hearing and ask the city manager if staff has any testimony.
Sorry, I'm reading an email from Harmony. Thanks, Harmony. I'll respond in a second. Right. No, I don't really have anything from the staff to present tonight.
Is there any questions from council to staff?
I have a quick question just for clarification. I'm looking at the facility rentals table with all of the fees, and I'm looking at the section under the cleaning fees and was curious. I just wanted to make sure that's those charges are for everybody, whether they are nonprofit or anybody.
My name is Hannah Merrill, Parks and Events Manager for Public Works. And we have agreements with the band and orchestra, and they do cleanup after their rehearsal. And we have an agreement that the city also supports that effort. So we will be doing some of that maintenance. But for groups that are one-time users, that is where there is a deposit for damage. And if there's extra cleanup, then we would charge them.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Hannah.
Mm-hmm.
Harmony?
I just wanted to echo back to our prior meeting when we had some public comments and some folks come in from the various organizations that use Swisher Hall. And I was just hoping that they did manage to bring in some of their input about the rental fee schedules. And I hope that I'm looking forward to hearing what Debbie has to say. And I hope that that piece was followed through on from the last meeting, that they did, that those organizations were able to help inform the writing of this document. So, and I imagine this is still a draft, correct?
So can I just speak to the first part first, which is one of the pieces of our agreement with the Sequim City Band is that we have also via the Sequim City Band supported the Sequim Orchestra as well. And so we will also be pursuing an agreement with them that allows them to have access to that space, to schedule their space like the city band would, so that they have time that is amenable and is not an additional charge in recognition of their work toward having the Swisher Hall be set aside as a space for the public. And they have entities that work with them, student groups, smaller groups that are part of those entities, whether it's part of the something supported by the Sequim City Band or the orchestra, that they also would be allowed to be using those space through their connection with those nonprofits.
And without charge.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, under those agreements where they're not charged. And to the second part, this is the moving forward, the actual agreement.
Okay, and so the section in the document that's in our packet with the red lettering, that it would be for users that are not the Sequim City Orchestra and the Sequim City Band, because they have separate agreements with the city.
Correct.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to public comment. And this is a public hearing, so all audience members wishing to make comment will be allotted 3 minutes to speak. When it is your time to speak, please give your name, address, and whether you reside in the city limits of Sequim. Please avoid repetitious comments, personal attacks, or comments not related to the subject before the council. And City Clerk, do we have anybody signed up?
I believe we have Debbie who would like to speak. Come on up.
Push the button. Okay. Thank you. So there were a couple of concerns with what was presented 2 weeks ago. And do I need to say my address again? And okay, thanks. Thank you, Amy. But there are 2 things on the form. One is that it specifies performance arts use, and that's clarified a little bit more in our lease agreement with the city, but it's actually for musical organizations. And so I'm a little bit concerned about the wording on that, because obviously theater arts is a performing arts group, and that's not really what this room was built for. So maybe a little clarification on the wording on that, just so the public knows what the use of the room is, and there's not a lot of confusion among groups. The lease agreements that have taken place, the bands is fine. We've worked on it a long time. My concern is my understanding is that the city is not allowed to show favoritism or preferential treatment to an organization. And I'm concerned that that's what it would look like with the orchestra. The orchestra really had nothing to do with building the building. They made a donation, as did many, many other organizations. But because they're a 501c3, if that's the rationale for giving them free use of the room, then it seems logical that any 501c3 in the city would have the same privilege. So I'm just concerned as a taxpayer that, the city could get into a situation where there's a lot of confusion about who can use it and why they get it for nothing. The other thing is there are a lot of other groups, for-profit groups that use it as well. And I can understand that the city is going to want to make, maybe just a little bit more money off of the building in order just to pay maintenance fees and that sort of thing. That makes logical sense to me, but I think it's a little conundrum that maybe the city needs to take a little bit more look at, if you would. And part of it is we have a lot of cross membership. So there are groups people that donated to the band that that are band members, and they're also members of some for-profit organizations and the orchestra. There's a lot of mishmash. It seems to me that it needs to be very cut and dried who exactly is supposed to be paying and who isn't supposed to be paying. Thank you very much for your attention.
Sorry, Mayor, is it okay if I would like to respond?
Anybody else signed up?
I have no one else signed up in the room, and I do not see anyone online at this time who wishes to provide comment.
Okay, I'll now close the public comment portion of the hearing. Thank you for everyone that provided public comment, and to the attorney.
Yeah, thank you, Council. So I guess what I would say is that this would be the first that I have heard that the orchestra did not have much to do with the fundraising. It was my understanding through anecdotal conversations with people that, at least as was presented to me, that the orchestra was very involved in this, not just as a donation by other people. So I don't know if Sarah was aware of that as well, but yes, that would be a concern for me, because as you're probably aware, the reason why we have the long-term lease with the city band is because of those contributions. And I would be very concerned to have a lease with the orchestra just on the same basis as the city band for that reason. So in recognition and frankly appreciation for your view as a taxpayer, right, on having people treated fairly, the council could entertain a non-profit status, but I do not want to speak for Sarah, because I believe the city had entertained that type of fee structure once before, and I seem to remember it causing some issues. And then so with that, before I cede the podium over to Sarah Van Osdol, I would say that with respect to the performing arts language in the code, your Department of Commerce contract, which limits that, actually does not limit it to just musical arts. It involves theater and arts and the performing arts in the general broad sense of the word. So don't be concerned about that. You're welcome. Thank you, Council.
I think we took the verbiage straight out of that contract when we developed it. So In terms of the orchestra, I also thought that they were pretty heavily involved, and I can't place that on any one conversation, but it's good information, and we haven't drafted that contract with the orchestra yet. So those are some issues that we'll take under consideration in order to figure out what is a fair contract to not only the orchestra, but the public.
If we can, in fact, enter into one.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, well, because, right, I mean, what is the basis for that? And at the risk of, saving the community and the council from the sausage making conversation, one of the things that council could do if this was a concern about a contract with the orchestra is you could close the public hearing and you could table the decision until the staff have looked to this a little bit more if you are not comfortable adopting this code change tonight.
So this code change doesn't reference the orchestra at all. It just sets a rental fee.
And it would just make it applicable to them until a different
we have
solution.
A contract.
Okay.
And I think a little clarification too, if I remember from the last meeting, I can't remember who it was now, from the orchestra had mentioned one of their issues was that they had to schedule like a 4-hour block time, and they were concerned because they would only use like 2 hours of that. And I think that was a little bit of a problem because, having to pay for something that you're not using for the full time. And so I guess one of my questions could be, I'm totally supportive of tabling it for now, but I also would be curious to hear about any like pros and cons to having the nonprofit part of the fee schedule be per hour, if that's possible, in order to help nonprofits not have to pay for time, that they're not using. So just a thought.
I know that EJ looked at the schedule of all the groups that were using Swisher Hall right now, and she kind of narrowed it down into general blocks of time. And that's how she came up with those 4-hour blocks. I know from my experience in dealing with rental rates and rental schedules, it's going to get tweaked for what works best for the city and the users. So definitely open to suggestions. That can be changed at any time.
So during his comments last meeting, Justin Noble had said that they've been receiving a monthly rate in the past. And I think that was one thing he was asking about. Do you know anything about that?
I think he was referring to the rate that they were paying the band for the use of the facility. Yeah.
Anything else from council for staff?
Is there a suggestion for replacing the language from that says performing arts to something referencing just musical? Is that a need?
We don't need to make that change. That we copied that. It was a clarification for the city band. We copied that language directly out of their contract with the Department of Commerce. So there's no issues or confusion there.
Anything else? Any further council discussion before I close the public hearing? Harmony?
Well, so I'm just trying to wrap my head around this. I think so. What I'm confused about is the fact that, what are we allowed to have? So we have specific rental agreement with the Sequim City Band for Swisher Hall, and then I'm hearing that there in the discussion this evening that we're considering another agreement with the Sequim Community Orchestra. And then once there's, and so just help me, I'm just gonna talk this one through. Once there's agreements with various organizations, those agreements supersede what is in the code, the proposed language that we're talking about here. And so this would be for everyone else who doesn't have an agreement with the city that's specific just to Swisher Hall. And so I can see how that that could be confusing, and it would create, it creates those special agreements. And that's I think a question for us is, at this point in this juncture, do we want to go down a path where we have special agreements with various organizations, and then it just maybe for simplicity's sake, how could we look at not having that situation happen? So I see you coming up to the mic, Christina.
Oh, good. I'm glad you can see that far. So we have the agreement with the city band because they actively fundraised, made the money, and managed the construction of that facility. And it is well grounded in Washington law that you are able to enter into agreements for those types of things. So in my mind, the issue with the lease agreement with the Sequim City Band is not an issue. It is outside of the agreement established in code. You are correct on that. So in outside, meaning the rates and fees and things like that do not apply to them in exchange for the money and the management of the project that they donated to the city. Does that make sense so far?
Yes. And so then what if I'm trying to understand what's been discussed so far. So, and then folks are talking about potentially I feel like I've heard people say that they're also think that we'd also be looking at doing an agreement with orchestra as well.
And that, based upon what I'm hearing tonight in public comment, is now, in my view, more problematic. It was my understanding that they were working in partnership with the band in a lot of things, that would give us the legal mechanism to enter into a long-term lease agreement like the band. But I'm learning tonight that that is not what in fact has happened. So from my perspective, I would not be comfortable recommending a lease with the orchestra based upon the facts as I understand them at this moment.
Thank you for a clarification, Christina. I appreciate that.
And a quick further clarification. The topic on the floor is just about the Swisher Hall rental fees. So the lease with the Sequim City Band and or the orchestra isn't in our wheelhouse right now.
Correct.
I think that the question last meeting from the orchestra was about having a monthly fee, but it sounded like the city band was subletting the building to them in an agreement.
That's the whole thing that I would rather not belabor this council meeting with.
So I think the question though is, would we want to offer an hourly rate to, or a monthly rate to them? And would that be something fair that we could or could not do?
I would say, could council ask staff to develop a monthly rate? The answer to that is yes. Could you limit it to just the orchestra? I would say probably not. You would have to have some other criteria for that in order to have it to be a class of organizations rather than a specific organization, if that makes sense.
Anything else? Harmony?
So then could we adopt the proposal and the proposed changes tonight as they are, and then make a further amendment to them as we develop this special monthly, the special class of organizations that would qualify for a monthly fee?
Wouldn't we be requiring them to pay the rental fee as soon as we pass this?
That's kind of part of what I'm debating right now. I think we do need to develop a separate contract with the orchestra. They're different than other groups that are just going to be renting it. They're actually providing service to the schools. So I don't know what we could legally develop that would make it a certain class of user. But we can work on that.
And I guess what I would say to council, and I recognize this is not going to be helpful to you in your decision, so I'm going to apologize in advance. But yes, this ordinance would be effective 5 days after it is adopted, and it would be applicable to everybody at this point except the Sequim City Band. I think that I think staff would be happy to look into the possibility of developing another class, but I don't want to go so far as to say that we can commit to making one, because I don't know that we've looked at it in that capacity. And and I would encourage staff and council to be thoughtful and mindful in avoiding creating any exception to the code that ends up swallowing the code, if that makes sense, right? We don't want to create a loophole or an exception so big as to where it renders the code meaningless, but nor do we want it so narrow that it really only affects the orchestra, because I have a suspicion that there are lots of nonprofits out there who do wonderful things who could also benefit from that. So that's the reason for my hesitation on committing to a monthly rate category. There's nothing preventing council from doing that outright either. It's just a separate category.
So I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but I almost feel like we should table this until we have that worked out, and basically just not make the facility rentable at all right now until we work it out.
So this is not the ideal place to be having this discussion. And so I guess what I would, isn't there something else in this code as well? Isn't the MPUP in here? It is not in here. Okay. Okay, well, I don't know. That the Public Works will, you'll need to look at that, but look at the ramifications of not adopting this, if any. And yeah, it is certainly warrants further discussion.
I'm open to making a motion.
All right, well, this is, the public hearing is now closed, and we will move on to council action. Although if we, instead of table, it'd be to postpone. So.
I move that we postpone this agenda item.
How long do you think you'll need?
A month.
Until the second meeting of June.
Do you need further council direct? I think.
I think we have to use the term table, and then it comes back the next
Well, we're not.
meeting.
We're not waiting to decide something else. So postpone's the correct motion for this one.
Okay.
Yeah. If we had to deal with something else first before this one, but this is a single item, so it's postponed.
Can I second Rachel's motion?
Moving second, any further discussion from council? Any opposed? All right, seeing none, the motion to postpone is passed. All right, moving on to our second public hearing. This will be Q2 2024 budget amendment and ordinance authorizing unforeseen expenditures for 2024. The public hearing is now open. City staff.
Good evening, Council. This is Sue Hagener, Administrative Services Director. For the record, good evening, Mayor, Deputy, and Council members. This is the second formal touch and the public hearing on the Q2 2024 budget amendments. I'll talk a little bit about why that term is important. And essentially what we're doing is we're adding appropriations to the budget for the purchase of a piece of property that we intend to make into a future park site. This has been, these negotiations have been in the works for over a year. The last time you saw this was in June, or the first time you saw this was in June 2023. So it's been a long road. And I'd like to report that we are getting really, really close to writing a check, which I'm super excited about. Tonight, we're asking you to amend the budget to make a room for the appropriations, as well as to account for some unanticipated funding sources like grants and some money that we saved last year for this purpose, but never spent as the purchase was delayed. So we're providing for some funding sources and we're providing appropriations for the purchase. And I'm here to answer any questions.
Any questions? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to public comments. And since this is a public hearing, all audience members wishing to make comment will be allotted 3 minutes to speak. When it is your time to speak, please give your name, address, and whether you reside in the city limits of Sequim. Please avoid repetitious comments, personal attacks, or comments not related to the subject before council. And do we have anybody signed up?
We have no one signed up in person. Anthony, is anyone signed up online wishing to speak to this item?
There are no raised hands at this time.
All right, I will close the public comment portion of the hearing. Is there any further council discussion? All right, I will now close the public hearing and we will move to council action. Are we ready for a motion?
I'm prepared to make a motion. I move to approve the ordinance adopting amendments to the 2024 budget.
I second that motion.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any opposed? All right, seeing none, motion passes.
Thank you so much, Council. I do want to mention that there's one other item in the consent agenda that is related to the purchase agreement. It's to make sure that everybody has the authority that they need to execute the agreement. And sorry about the last minute addition. It was a title company request of us. Finally, I mentioned Q2 budget amendment for 2024. That's because I'm going to bring you another budget amendment in June for an unexpected item. We'll be asking for an FTE and we'll present our case at that point in time related to parks and events. So stay tuned. Thank you again.
All right, item 8, reports. No youth liaisons tonight. So city manager.
Thank you, Council. Before we turn a few minutes over, or I'd like to turn a few minutes over to Megan Uker, who is our resource analyst. I wanted to make a couple introductions to you all. We have, I don't think you've met in person, or at least he hasn't been to a city council meeting before, is Paul Busich. And then we also have, this is our very first day, our new DCD director, Lindsay, is here with us as well. I asked them if you're willing to just take a minute or two and just take a minute and introduce themselves. I think you've received their emails, so you know a lot of their history, and we forwarded their resumes as well, but didn't know if you wanted to hear from them for a minute or two. It's up to you. Okay. Paul, why don't we start with you? This is Paul's 8th day. And of course, he's overlapping with Sarah until July.
No pressure, Paul.
Oh, now I feel pressure. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of the City Council. As the City Manager indicated, this is my 8th day, and I couldn't be happier that Sarah is still here to answer questions for you on things that have been going on for quite some time. I'm looking forward to serving the community out here. I have about 38 years of experience. Most of that has been in the public sector, working for large and small organizations. Some of it has been as a private consultant too. And I really love what I do. And I love being able to help a community and make a difference on everyday as well as long-term vision accomplishment. Thank you.
Lindsay's been doing this about 8 hours.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. Lindsay Zamel. I am a lifetime Washingtonian and am very excited to come and serve the community of Sequim. I have about 17 years in the land use and planning realm between Washington and Oregon, and enjoy lots of the beautiful nature that you have out here. So I hope to bring some of my knowledge and experience from working with communities throughout the Puget Sound, including Gig Harbor, Bremerton, Puyallup, as well as some time working with the Puyallup Tribe of Indians and in transit most recently too. So thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to working closely with you.
Thank you so much. Welcome to the team.
Yeah, thank you both. We had a full senior management team meeting this morning, which was great to have all the chairs full. So with that, I think on the agenda is a update or overview of our sustainability initiatives here in the city. And so Megan is running that committee internally for us. And
just thinking, where's my PowerPoint? Yeah, that would be great. Oh, thanks. Sorry, I forgot about that part, checking with you. So I'm Megan Euchre, Resource Analyst with Public Works. And tonight I'm going to talk about, give you a brief update on Sustainable Sequim campaign that was launched a few years ago. Give some background as to how that came about, since many of you are new, including me, since it launched. And kind of some of the things that we've been doing around that. And I appreciate Matt sitting that here in under his city manager report, because he's really kept that alive through the transition of different staff, and him and Marin are key people on our Sustainable Sequim subcommittee. Okay, thank you, Amy. So background, here we go. So you may be familiar with some resolutions that were passed back in 2012 and 2016 that gave us a greenhouse gas policy and a sustainability and resiliency resolution. And those have been vital, actually, in a lot of our funding applications. That kind of thing is required, in fact, to have a greenhouse gas policy. And along with that, Sequim has participated in a lot of the sort of sustainability, climate change, hazard planning that's gone on in our, across the community. So that includes climate change preparedness plans and resiliency applications that have happened through, for instance, with the North Olympic Development Council. And then Clallam County, we're now in the middle of our second, I'm sure we've had a few more than that, but a kind of a multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan update where we've worked with the county and other jurisdictions to plan for, again, climate and natural disasters. So again, Earth Day 2022, we launched what was formerly called Sustainable Sequim. And we did that with, a general kind of a draft charter. We haven't published that, but the kind of the guiding purpose that came around why we wanted to launch this campaign as a city is to be a partner in response to impacts from climate change with other entities and, of course, the community itself, to prepare the city to absorb and recover from stresses while maintaining essential functions and adapting and thriving in the face of continual change while managing risk. So again, a resolution was passed to establish sustainable SQUIM. From that, staff helped develop sort of a menu of measures, which is sort of actions that are both internal, that are sometimes in partnership with other entities, and then also that are community-based. And this is just kind of a big brainstorm of various actions that really represent sustainability in different arenas, anything from energy efficiency and conservation to wastewater systems and a lot of other sort of categories. Go ahead. And you can see some of that, those categories on our webpage. And so that's where we really have the opportunity to share our story of what we've done in the past and what we're, still working on today with the community, including our solar system, our solar power system on our roof that we did in 2020. Other, again, partnership work that we do, planning on, for regional water availability. Pandemic helped force, alternatives to driving, which are really important, but SQUIM stepped up and made sure we had the tools to be able to do that. Of course, honoring Tree City USA with new plantings and bike-friendly community bronze level we achieved again this year, renewed, and then our continual celebration of Bike Month. So just some fun stats on, again, how we continue to be a sustainable city. Again, we're producing solar power, and that gives us a credit on our bill. Nicole probably knows as much about that as me. But I gave you some, just a little snapshot of 2023 with almost 61 megawatt hours that we produced from that system, and what that means here in the Northwest as to those gains and, kind of greenhouse gas reduction achievements. And then same for those electric charging stations, the two public ones that we have there at the PUD property and Govan. Again, some kind of fun equivalency statistics to see what kind of an impact we're making there with those. And some more 2023 actions that, again, were sort of, some were chosen through our CIP, really. They come about because just implementing our CIP, again, can often give us some really big impacts when we, configure our traffic signals and reduce congestion, reduce idling, things like that. The process efficiencies we achieve installing our SCADA system, lots there at our WRF. And then just, disconnecting our storm drain as we're doing one project and we find a bunch of storm drains that were connected into the sewer, disconnecting those and getting that, taking advantage of the wonderful stormwater infiltration that we have here with our great soils. So again, some great sustainability achievements there. Karen, actually, before she left here, she really brought us up to speed on our reusable dishware. We continually do LED bulb upgrades. That's been a parks facilities, push year after year. We did get a great hybrid fleet vehicle last year. And then we work again, both within the city and with some of our partners. Anne was a really great resource on the water resources planning team with DRMT, who's laid a really great plan on kind of managing our water resources long-term, what we need to do. And we work on our water conservation outreach every year. So this year, super excited about those bike lanes and sidewalks and what that means for walkability and, multimodal transportation, working on our automatic meter reading system that's going to bring a lot of efficiencies and reduce the vehicle miles traveled by city staff. And that new deep well that really taps into water resiliency for our water sources. Some other activities, hopefully you maybe read the sustainability tip that we put in there every month for everyone that gets our newsletter. I'm super excited about a big e-waste recycling project. We have storerooms full of things that we really need to manage well. And so we're starting to have some really great conversations around that with IT and our facilities crew. Drought preparedness coordination is definitely being talked about, as you know, among the community, and the DRMTs, has that as a standing agenda item. And so we're helping with that. Y'all passed the compost procurement ordinance earlier this year. And then it's just big planning, efforts this year that are really going to be vital for sort of, integrating sustainability, climate resiliency, and all of that other great stuff into our comprehensive planning, our transportation master plan, which is also a bike plan, and a multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan, which really fits the climate element requirement from, through the GMA this year. So. You're doing great. Thank you. So again, just moving forward with, again, an internal sustainability committee that we have at this time, as we just really appreciate some of the work that council did around with their retreat and some of the planning. I think that ties really well with some of the climate action that you wanted to prioritize. And then again, senior management team and others working to think about how we can integrate that with our sustainability climate committee activities. So again, many of our actions, some are internal, and then some we eventually will can partner more with the community on. Sometimes they require outside partnerships. And so we'll continue to work on our 2024 actions and look at 2025 and take advantage of some of the community experts on sustainability. Again, really taking advantage of community partnerships. And again, lots of plans that really integrate, sustainability is great when it integrates into all of that kind of day-to-day stuff that you're already doing. So again, we're going to really take advantage of that. And many of you are probably in this picture, I believe, and just think this is why we do it, is for our community and for the youth, the future. And so just wanted to thank everyone for their time.
Thank you, Megan. Is there any questions from council? We're just trying to keep you updated. I think, Megan was here before and talked about the water and kind of that status, because that was brought up at your retreat as well. And I know some of your constituents were asking about this. I know sustainability and climate and resilience was another part of your priorities and goals. We're just trying to update you. This is just brief updates. We can go much further into detail. Matter of fact, you just saw just a little snippet of a very extensive Excel spreadsheet that we have going with, is it 6 or 8 different categories and dozens of subcategories underneath those major categories of things that we can do that are all heat mapped and whatnot. So really want to thank Megan for leading this committee. I think you'd be very happy, and we can go into more detail either on our one-on-ones or a work session or whatever you'd like. But our initial focus is to go for the low fruit, things that don't cost a lot of money that we can implement right away, and things that we can control as a city with our own facilities and our own employees and whatnot, and then to move after we've kind of shown the example and have some results to show what we're doing, then to go more and more into the community and with our residents. So thank you for all of that, Megan. You're fantastic. So
thanks.
Any questions from her? Yes.
Has the city thought about having a computer or printer amnesty day and collect everybody's the stuff that's sitting in people's closets and garages, the tech stuff?
I I don't know if anyone's thought of that, but I know that the Lions Club I think it was the Lions Club or Kiwanis. There was a big effort in Port Angeles, a public effort like that. There was a big popular e-waste day just a couple months ago, and certainly could be a good resource for volunteers, someone to do that kind of thing. But again, we've identified a number of storerooms just from into the city. And so we're kind of working with like a state agency that oversees e-cycling and to see, cause some things are collected or are recycled for free through the state e-waste program, and some items are not. So you'd have to kind of assess the cost and things like that as well. But yeah, good idea. Harmony?
Thank you so much for your presentation, Megan. Did really excellent to have all that data conglomerated in a really easy to understand format. Couple things, as I was looking through the resources, I did find a dead link on the city website for the SNOTEL snow telemetry site. And I believe, was that the email you were referring to earlier, Matt?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah.
Okay.
Part of
Thanks.
Websites.
Yep.
Thank you for that information. We're paying extra to Civic Plus, our website vendor. It's called an ADA kind of add-on to make sure that it catches all links that are not linked. So you beat the software this time. So thank you for that. We'll go find that.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you. It does link back to the USDA website, but just in a way that says, nope, there's nothing there. And the language on that was really clever. It's not either way. I digress. Next year, on this subject, I'd love to do Bike Month in the Irrigation Festival. So anyone who's passionate about bikes, let's do an entry in the Irrigation Festival about City of Sequim's Bike Month. And then the other piece that I thought would be interesting would be to locate the pamphlet about water conservation on the fact sheet section of the website, because it has a lot of really good content. And I was just really impressed by that pamphlet. And I was like, oh, that should be more, that should be maybe in a place where folks are going for more, like have it be right next to that fact sheet about water. And then it's just a suggestion. And then because it's Bike Month and I was looking into this the other day, I also noted that electric bike batteries can be recycled in the community, either at the one in the bike shop in Port Angeles, the Sound Kayaks and Bikes, and then the Broken Spoke in Port Townsend, and then Ben's Bikes here locally in our backyard. All will take electric bike batteries for recycling. Thank you for putting this on there, and great content.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Megan. I will quickly move through other departmental updates and reports, but before I do, I wanted just to mention a couple things from the city manager's office. I wanted you all to know that we have met internally regarding the conversation we had last meeting about the traffic and speed out on West Sequim Bay Road. We had leadership from police department, public works, legal, city manager, whatnot. Public works is taking the lead on that, and I believe they are doing a full workup on options, and we'll be bringing that back to you in the next month or so, I think is the target. So in the next meeting or two, you should hear back from Public Works. Also, I sent you the state of the city. I previously sent you the deck, but I put an audio file with it. Some said that they couldn't access the audio file. Let me know if that's a problem and I can resend that. I also made that state of the city today with the Chamber of Commerce, and Kathy was there representing City Council. And so I appreciate that support, and we continue to have real positive comments about all the things that you all are doing and that we're trying to do operationally. From the clerk's office, be on the lookout for two things. Number one is there's a new letter of support that has actually been asked of by the PUD. So we'll probably have to, their deadline is before the next meeting. So the clerk's office will probably be sending that out to you for your thumbs up so that that can be signed, just a kind of a heads up. And then I know either the clerk or Barb will be sending you an email as well about we need a new group photo of you all because we've got some new people. And so we wanted to get that updated for our website and our public. So just be looking for that. As long as I'm talking about Barb and communications a little bit here, she's also been working really hard with our comp plan consultants, which is SCJ. And because we're, that's a 1.5 year engagement. We're about 5 months into that. And it's really, we're moving into the summer months where there's public engagement. And so there's a 3-day public engagement kind of workshops going on down at Guy Cole. You'll be seeing a lot of, we'll be making a press release on this. It's in our newsletter, and there'll be emails, and a lot of social media, just trying to get the public engaged to go down to these sessions that they have down at Guy Cole. I think it's June 11th through the 13th. So just be aware of that. And I thank Barb for working with our consultants and their marketing team on that. Quickly then, just from the police department, they just returned from the annual Washington State Sheriff's Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs last week, where they were presented the award for accreditation that I think I mentioned to you last time. So they now have that official award in their hands. And Tiffany was, as you know, she kind of is the administrator for the administration efforts in the front office in our PD. And she was also recognized at this annual conference for her work as an accreditation assessor and as a mentor for some other agencies. So, kudos to Tiffany for that. And finally, from the police department, Stephanie Beniz was recognized as the Officer of the Year in 2023 at the annual Olympic Peninsula Footprints Recognition Dinner. So again, lots of good things coming out of our police department. Finally, from Public Works, Megan and Amy accompanied me to the Opportunity Fund board meeting in PA last week, where we presented 3 different options for the Opportunity Fund board to consider funding 3 different projects for the city of Sequim. We continue to contribute to that, of course, through a percentage of tax, and have not yet ever submitted a request for some of that money in return. And so now at least we've asked, as has every community, for some support that way. Also, you should know that Public Works made a really nice, Nick is here, and he made a really nice presentation to the Planning Commission last week, presented our CIP and our TIP for a first touch last week to them, and that will be coming to you shortly thereafter as well. So I think that's everything I had, Council. Any questions? Thank you.
Council committee reports.
Actually, I was at the luncheon today, and our city manager did an excellent job. And people, there was like hanging on to his every word. No, it was easy to understand, and your enthusiasm came through. So, and they liked that. That was a good thing. I attended, Rachel and I are both on the Clallam County Transit Board, and they had an extra meeting before their meeting 2 weeks ago, and it's called the composition meeting the composition of the board. And I will tell my fellow counselors, I really tried to get it to be 1 counselor and 1 alternate, but they wouldn't budge. So we will continue to have 2 counselors at the board meetings and an alternate, but I'll tell you, I did try. And also, I didn't know, did you get my email 2 weeks ago, Matt?
Yes.
Okay, so I would like to plan a meeting with Sue and Hannah Merrill, and Brandon and I, and
Yes.
I'm not sure if anybody else from council, and get our heads together after all that information. There's 3 attachments. I'm interested in the city having what's called a Gold Star Memorial, and this commemorates people that died in combat whose families live here in Sequim or did live here in Sequim. Forks has one. Port Angeles has a marker, and we have a plaque from a soldier in World War II right out here on our patio. But I think it's about time that Sequim had a Veterans Memorial, and I'm very interested. I met Woody when he came to where I used to live and I was on council. Before he passed away, he came to our town for our dedication of our Gold Star Memorial. He was a very nice guy, very nice guy. But I was wondering if we can get together and meet about it.
We've all watched the videos. We've looked at the attachments and very supportive in whatever council wants to do with that. And we've got plenty of park space.
And council doesn't really know about it, but
okay.
I wanted to meet with the city people first, because there's a way to ask people for money and there's a way not to ask people for money. I didn't want to embarrass the city.
Well, we were a little, where'd Hannah go? We were wondering what the revenues and what the financial model was. We get the concept and of course believe in honoring vets and fallen vets, of course. But weren't sure about the revenue, how the dollars
It's donations.
work. Okay.
Okay. But you have to follow their strict guidelines, and it's a 501c3, and they also support you in other ways. So, okay. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Any other reports?
I attended the Arts Commission meeting on behalf of Harmony, and there wasn't a quorum, so it wasn't an actual business meeting, but I did share Harmony's statement, and I shared a letter from the mayor about the communication between the city council and then the advisory group. And there were 2 new members and 1 that was still there from when I was council liaison. So they've had a lot of turnover. They're almost full, 1 shy of a full commission again.
Harmony?
Yes, thank you, Vicki, for being my substitute today. I was, last night I was supporting my daughter's health, and so I just felt that it was important for me to attend virtually, and I was also working today during the Sequim Arts Commission meeting, so I really appreciate you taking that on for me, Vicki. And so that was... the statement that you're referencing was acknowledging that and thanking Vicki for being there as my sub, and then also stating that I've been very excited about all the collaborative teamwork between council and staff in making sure that we're all on the same page about the Arts Commission's roles. And I look forward to a creative 2024 and continuing to support the commission in that way. And then also huge thanks to you, Kathy, for bringing up the Gold Star Memorial. I think that would be really excellent. I was at the Memorial Day services put out by facilitated by the American Legion at 4 local cemeteries. And it was a very special day, and it's so important to recognize our veterans and our fallen heroes in the community, because they give so much for all of us. Otherwise, the only board between our last meeting and the one for today that I've attended is the Parks, Arbor, and Recreation Board, and some great conversation. There's some discussion about a section of Carrie Blake, and I'm sure that when that is all done being processed, that we'll have an excellent proposal or a recommendation from Hannah Merrill about that. And yeah, looking forward to moving forward. Thank you so much.
All right. Anyone else? All right. Item 9, consent agenda. City Clerk.
On tonight's consent agenda, we have item 9A, claim vouchers totaling $2,244,233.93. Item 9B, City Council meeting minutes from May 13, 2024. Item 9C, the Sequim Municipal Code Chapter 20.01 amendments, that's an ordinance. And item 9D, Park Property Acquisition Signing Authority, that's a resolution.
Is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any opposed? All right, seeing none, motion passes. All right, moving on to general business. 10A, amendment to contract for solid waste services.
Hello again, Council. So this amendment, as you read in your packet, is to amend our current solid waste contract, 10-year contract with Olympic Disposal. No, Murray's Disposal Company, excuse me. Those are a variety of companies that, basically are Waste Connections, are doing business as Murray's. But this is just to add the service for on-call bulky waste collection service. And they actually brought this to us. It's a service that they offer in different areas where they serve in Column and Jefferson County. And the price schedule is there. And essentially, as you probably read, that would kind of be a direct arrangement between the customer and Murray's. Olympic Murray's. Okay. Yeah, so City of Sequim would not be that involved, but it would be great to have that right there at the curb. And they would also take care of things like refrigerators and deal with the Freon and things like that. So yeah, and recycle where possible. And so it seemed like a really welcome service. In fact, funny enough, I got an email today from someone asking about this service, if we offered it. So it might be coming. We'll see.
Along those lines, but unrelated, is our contract with them such that they provide free services for city facilities, correct? As part of the contract?
It's in the contract, bundled into the contract is our own collection service. Yes.
And it's not due for renewal for what, another 5 years?
Yeah, well, it's 10 years, and I want to say 2020 to 2030, something like that. Okay.
Because I would like to see something added to the contract. Obviously, it would be something different than this one for actual recycling services like they have outside the facility over there in PA. They have the industrial dumpsters for cardboard and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we have glass recycling through the contract. Mm-hmm. That's the only, and that happens. There's a place at Evergreen Disposal, and then there's the place at the city shop. And those are, that's the only service that we have in terms of that kind of bigger, free recycling that gets embedded. Essentially, the cost gets embedded into the cost of your contract. But yeah.
Yeah, we also something outside of this item here, but I think that's something council might want to look at in the future. At least I would. So, but okay. Anyone else? If not, there's a couple of motions.
I'm prepared to make a motion. I move to waive the second touch on this matter and direct staff to place Amendment 2 to the contract for solid waste services on the consent agenda of the next available meeting.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. Thank you. Item 10B, statement of coexistence added to council rules. Amy?
Yes, good evening, Council. This is a follow-up from your previous meeting where you asked to add the statement of coexistence, which you did read. The decision by council was to read it once a quarter and include it on the agenda as a standing item on the agenda, just not read every time. So we have done that. So that is now included on the agenda template that goes out. And you also asked that it be added to the council rules, that the mayor or the deputy mayor would reach out, I believe, every 2 years to the tribe to make sure that the statement was still appropriate, as these things can change over time. So included for your consideration, I have provided edits to section 8.1 of the council rules, as you'll see in your packet. It's a pretty simple edit. I wasn't quite sure if it captured everything. You know, it's just a little note. Looking at the council rules, it seemed the most appropriate to add it to the mayoral responsibilities, since that was your direction. So I have included that, and that is the only change at this time to the council rules. It's just that little addition for you. So if you wish to move forward with that, the options are included in your agenda cover sheet. You could just adopt the resolution tonight, or if you wish to consider again, you may. But that's there for your review.
It's also going to be on the city council website?
Yes, it has been added to the city council website.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm prepared to make a motion if there are no questions, but it looks like Harmony might have a question. No, okay.
I was going to make the motion, but go for it. Please, Rachel.
Okay. I move to adopt the resolution adopting the updated council rules with modifications to Article 8.1, mayoral responsibilities.
I'll second that.
All right, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any opposed? All right, seeing none, motion passes. Item 10C, General Records Management Policy. Amy?
Hello again. So this is coming before you for the first time. I'll provide a bit of the summary from the agenda cover sheet. Basically, the Washington State Archives recommends that the agencies have a general records management policy, just an overarching policy that notes that the city has a policy for records management and believes in transparency, discusses some roles that the city staff have, things of that nature. So I found out we do not currently have one. So I wanted to get that established. That will help us build even further on more specific policies or guidelines in the future. So before you is that general records management policy. It's pretty standard language. I crafted it from looking at various other agencies that have adopted. Some do really long ones, some have really short ones. So I worked with staff to kind of find what was appropriate, I felt. And noting those key things, the benefit of managing records, that we are open to transparency and committed to that, and outlining some of those principles, some definitions, and some roles that the staff play. It's brought before you tonight because it's a policy level decision, and it does affect not only all of city staff, but all of you and all of the volunteers, boards, committees, things like that, which are under you. So it's a way of a heads up to you guys that this is now officially, hopefully going to be a policy. And yeah, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but I hope you consider it. And you can, we suggest you waive it a second touch on the matter, bring it back for the consent agenda, or you could have it just come back for discussion.
Amy, at this time, does the city charge when you request records?
There is a standard fee schedule posted on our public records website. It's typically it's like per page if we print it for somebody or things like that. But it's all outlined on our website, and of course yeah, if there's any questions about that, we'd be happy to answer them.
I'm prepared to make a motion if there are no other questions. Harmony, did you have a question?
Yeah, just kind of wondering what was happening before. Thank you for catching that there wasn't an official protocol or policy in place, Amy. So yeah, what was happening before, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I can't speak too much to what happened before me, though I can say that the state archives did issue that advice in 2019. So I'm not sure how long that has been the advice before that. We do at the city have standard operating procedures for like records requests, how to manage records. So we have been following those appropriate guidelines and rules and laws. It just never was stated that we were following those guidelines and rules and laws. So it's under my understanding that we always have been. This is just that extra step so we can comply and then maybe build a more robust system moving forward.
And if council, if I may add, Christina Nelson-Gross, city attorney for the record, when we do get records requests for councilors' records, having this type of policy will help staff communicate that with councilors and committee members as well, right? Our planning commission, our arts commission, things like that. And so having something that has been approved, blessed by the city council will obviously carry more weight than just staff alone and pointing to RCWs and saying, please give us your records that we're supposed to have. So thank you.
I'd just like to add that I read through this and I think it's very well crafted, and it's just a nice way to encapsulate what the Secretary of State and the archives already are very clear in what the laws are, but this really summarized it in a great way to make it a good policy statement for the city. Nicely done.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
If there are no other questions, I'm prepared to make a motion. I move to waive the second touch in this matter and direct staff to prepare a resolution adopting the general records management policy to be presented on the consent agenda at the next available meeting.
I'm happy to second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, 10D is Sequim Municipal Code, Chapter 2.04, City Council Code Amendment. Amy.
Hello again. So let me get this all set up here. I closed out of everything thinking I was done. So this item before you tonight is a code amendment. You're familiar with how staff go through, do a code scrub, update outdated language. This is one of those. So again, nothing new and radical being proposed tonight, but this is to the Sequim City Council area of our code. And it's actually kind of interesting. Our first proposal is changing the title of this code section. It's not just about city council, it's specifically about city council meetings. So we're suggesting to modify that. And the main changes besides language updating is adding a section about executive sessions because that was not previously included. Again, that does exist and we do hold executive sessions. They're just not listed in our code. And also an addition of a section about notice of meetings. So again, we do follow the law and notice meetings, but here it just adds that to this section. So it's all encapsulated together with those other meeting types spelled out and the fact that we have requirements to notice meetings in accordance with the law. So that's on your tap for review tonight.
I'm prepared to make a motion if there are no questions. It's very straightforward. Just double checking, no questions? Okay. I move to waive the second touch on this matter and direct staff to present an ordinance on the consent agenda for the next available meeting to adopt the amendment to SMC Chapter 2.04.
I second that.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussions? Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. Item 10E, Sequim Municipal Code 1204, Sidewalk Use Code Amendment. Nick.
Good evening, Council. Nick Dosty, City Engineer. This is another contribution from the Code Scrub team. Just providing updates in language, both referencing City Code and RCW's updates for ADA and references to engineering standards. So this one specifically was coordinated with our building official, really isolated to the downtown corridor with the awnings, overhangs, things like that. So as you can see in the summary, original drafting of the code was in 1974. So just a little bit of an update required to be compliant with code and building standards today. So very straightforward. Thank you.
Nick, when we talk about overhang on a sidewalk, that's still right of way, correct? How far up in the air does the right of way go?
I'm sorry, how far up in the air?
Yes, like if you had an awning hanging over a sidewalk, a wooden structure.
Right.
Like a marquee or something.
I guess in my mind, right, you would think of the right of way as a plane. I wouldn't say it necessarily has a ceiling to it, but there are ADA requirements when it comes to width and height, as far as it being too short. I don't think there's any restrictions on buildings being too high. That's probably an FAA issue if we're concerned about that. I don't see that being a problem in Sequim.
Okay.
So.
I was just concerned about the
yeah,
if it was a right-of-way issue or not.
It can be if what's being proposed is again with those ADA requirements that are now referenced when it comes to width and to height. Usually when it comes to things, if we're talking about height, it's trees, things like that start to hang down. Typically not too much of an issue when it comes to awnings and things like that.
But if somebody dangled a flag from them, that would be an issue?
For this code, that I would say, I guess it depends on how low and what the hazard is, right? As far as code enforcement goes, or if you're talking about flags or flag poles, right? I guess it would depend on the zoning, but if you're talking about, say, like for this instance in the downtown corridor, if a flag was on the ground and it's a tripping hazard, then I would just say that's generally a public safety hazard. This deals more with the building official side, inspections, things like that.
Okay, so it's not something like a sandwich sign, which would get in the way of a wheelchair.
If the sandwich sign was low enough to get in the way of a wheelchair, then we would have.
They sit on the sidewalk, like this.
I
call them sandwich signs.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm not hungry or anything. I'm just.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm prepared to make a motion. I move to waive the second touch on this matter and direct staff to present an ordinance on the consent agenda at the next available meeting that adopts the proposed amendment to SMC Chapter 12.04.
I second it.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. 10F, Sequim Municipal Code 1208, Sidewalk Construction Code Amendment.
So while we've entered into the previous section of code, we figured why not address this as well. And again, this is removing duplicates, updating references in both code, engineering standards, and RCW. And then delineating the responsibilities of property owners adjacent to sidewalk with regard to maintenance and repair. And again, this is ongoing code scrub. So there is more to come, whether it's sidewalk related or not. So just the routine of making sure we're up to date and in the right direction. Thank you.
I move that we skip the second touch on Chapter 12.8 Sidewalk Construction Code and have it on the consent agenda at our next meeting.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any opposed? All right, seeing none, motion passes. Thank you. All right, item 11, time and date discussion for City Council priorities and staff work plan.
I believe you're probably going to look my way for that discussion item. As you may recall in a previous council meeting, I've mentioned this before. I forwarded you following your retreat where you came up with, I believe, 6 priorities, and then the mediator of that retreat also asked you, what do you see as next steps under each of those 6? We then followed your retreat with a senior management team retreat to try to identify how do we take your priorities and your next step items and roll it into a work plan that kind of how do we operationalize your policies. And so we have done that. I think I sent that to you previously, and I just wasn't sure what your thoughts were or are on how to finalize that or get that to a place where you can vote on that or come to some kind of consensus on that, or we can have a conversation about that. Dave Mercier is the one that really suggested that we keep it going until there's been some type of formalization in that document. I believe that document will be the first time council has had something to kind of hold city manager accountable for a work product or whatever. So we'll take that very seriously, but not that we haven't always, but that does kind of help crystallize or formalize some actions that you would like us to take as an operations team. And then we even had some of the things that we came up with. We thought those are really perhaps more in your lane than ours, but still part of the work plan. Anyway, so that's, I think we didn't plan on opening up that document tonight, but I wasn't sure if you wanted to have a work session on that, or if you wanted to submit your responses back to the clerk or to me with your input, and then we could combine those. I just didn't know how to move it forward to get to some kind of, resolution. So just wanted to have you all have a conversation about that.
Right. I'll jump right in and just say I'm open to having a work session about it, just because if we had it during a council meeting, I don't know what kind of, how long our discussions would be. So being able to have a dedicated work session, I think would be productive and helpful.
Thank you.
Everybody in agreement with that idea? I see a thumbs up from everybody. Okay, we'll get that queued up.
Yeah, thank you. I'll go back and look at that work plan, and if there's anything else I can prepare and for you to review, but I think you have the document, and so I'll see if there's anything else I can come up with that might be helpful for that work session, but look forward to having that discussion. Thank you so much.
All right, 11B, school board invitation to meet with city council. So Dan brought this up, and I reached out to the school board, and they are interested in having a meeting. So the first thing would be to figure out a date that works for everybody. So I would propose, like we've done in the past, if the city clerk would send out a template or whatever to gauge what everybody's availability is, and then we can move from there and get something scheduled with them.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Do they have an outline?
We're going to see, not yet. We're going to see what we can get set up first, what everybody's availability looks like, and then we can shoot outlines back and forth. So I would think on topics that we want to discuss with them. So in the meantime.
Are you thinking, Mayor, that might be prior to a city council meeting or something like a work session that where you would have their board and your council set up?
I think it'll probably depend on what everybody's availability looks like.
Okay.
If we need to have a special one, then we may need to, but.
I think they meet on Monday nights.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did look at that calendar, and I think there's times when, because that you're available, but I'll leave it up to you all. Okay, thank you.
All right, anything else for council discussion? I have Harmony.
Just a quick update. Wanted to confirm that both myself and Port Angeles City Councilor Drew Schwab have applied to the first cohort of the Washington Collaborative Elected Leaders Institute, hosted by the Association of Washington Cities. We are awaiting their decision-making process on which groups of counselors to invite to be part of the inaugural cohort. And I should have an update at the next city council meeting. They specified that the decisions would be made in early June. Thank you so much.
Good luck.
Anyone else?
I almost forgot. Thank you for the reminder. I had sent out an email over the weekend, I think. Time is an enigma. I sent an email out to the city clerk to send everybody about the AWC's general business meeting, which will happen during the AWC conference. And so they've reached out to municipalities looking for up to 3 voting delegates to attend the business meetings. And I'm not sure if Sequim has appointed voting delegates in the past or how recent, if they did. And so I was just curious, I guess, if anybody was interested in doing that. I'm interested, but I don't want to just go do it. I would like council to be able to appoint the delegates.
When is it?
I will pull up the information. It's June 20th, and you can go, they have a virtual option, which is great.
What day is that? So a day at work.
And the meeting starts at 4, I think.
Yeah, 4 to 5:45. Should we designate some delegates?
That's what I was hoping we could do.
I could possibly do it at that time if it's going to be virtual.
Okay.
So I could possibly be able to.
And I brought it up over the weekend because we don't need to send in our application until the June 12th, I think. And so I was going to bring it back up at the first meeting in June to get, this was more to see like if you're interested, if you have the capacity, and then June 10th meeting would be like, okay, who's in, who can we appoint? So yeah. So think about it.
Registration is due on Thursday, June 13th
On the
by
13th.
5 p.m.
Okay.
So we'll queue that one up for next meeting as well.
Yeah. So
Looking
think about
forward to seeing the email. Thank you so much for doing that research, Rachel.
I was just going to ask if this would be like a one-time appointment of a delegate, or is this something that needs to be added to that list of delegates and alternates to the committees and organizations?
Ooh, that is a great question, and I can reach out and find out. Okay.
Anybody else? I just have two quick things. Number one, I'm not sure who to address this to. Probably maybe you, Christine, I'm not sure. But at what point does the code scrub warrant, I know it's a continuing ongoing thing, a revised code?
Tell me what you mean by revised code.
Instead of having a whole bunch of this has been redacted, you know, does that start from scratch, a brand new revised code of SQUIM?
So in essence, when council approved the contract with SCJ Alliance and we had the Unified Development Code option included with that, that is what that will be in terms of all of the Unified Development Code. They will take existing code, probably do something along the lines of a gap analysis, and then putting them together in a logical order. So in that sense, that will be new. In terms of the rest of it, I think it would be helpful for me to understand more what you're looking for.
I'll reach out to you.
Okay, that would be great.
Yeah. And the second thing, I get this will be for Sarah, is you don't have to tonight if you don't have the information, but that comment during public comment regarding the piping issue, where someone said that we told, who was it, Gary Smith, that we wanted it piped. There was that comment.
Is that even in the city limits? All of it?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't know where that comment would have come from because this is not a city initiative.
Okay. Yeah, I like I said, that was just made during a public comment. The city made comment to whoever the Gary Smith gentleman.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Who would like to attend next agenda meeting on the 4th?
If no one else can, I can do the 4th.
Okay.
2 o'clock?
Yep. All right. And next regular city council meeting will be on June 10th at 6 p.m. It'll be a hybrid option. And if there's nothing else.
I motion to adjourn.
I second.
All right. We're adjourned.